Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a video that you requested all about job interviews and my experience and advice and stuff like that. So I wanted to share my advice first of all and then talk about one of my bad experiences in a job interview situation. And honestly, it's not that bad, but I still wanted to talk about it because it happened recently and it kind of infuriated me in a way. But first, I want to just quickly say something a little bit random, but I just have been struggling so hard with YouTube lately. I feel like I haven't been able to be myself in my videos because of this move, and I feel like because I'm not comfortable in my surroundings, I'm coming off in my videos not myself at all, and it is so frustrating for me to edit my videos and watch them back and be like, that is not me at all. That is not me. That is some sad non-personality person. I don't want to be that person because that's not who I am. And I think if you watch my vlogs, that is 100% me. That is literally my personality. But in my videos, when I'm sitting down, I just don't feel myself at all. And so I tried filming in a different background. It didn't really work that well. And I just feel like my surroundings are so not permanent at all that I just think it's hard for me to feel at ease and comfortable, and my videos are just not good, and I feel bad about it because I love doing this and I don't want people to think that that's who I am, because it's not. Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know, have you guys noticed? But I feel like I'm just not happy with my content because I just feel like I'm not myself, and it sucks because I am happy. I'm just not used to my surroundings and totally all over the place. But anyways, we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about my experience with job interviews. And the first thing I think that we should talk about is the fact that they suck. Frankly, there's nothing good about job interviews. I'm going to share some of my advice with you guys because I did a fair few interviews just in the past month trying to get a job. I was successful in the end, thank Jesus. I think the first piece of advice that I would give you is to apply for jobs that you're actually qualified for and to apply for jobs that are actually hiring. And you think that's simple, but when you get really desperate, you just start applying everywhere and throwing resumes at people. And the reality is that if the place isn't hiring, you're probably not going to get a job, so don't waste your time. That's kind of the first piece of advice that I have. The second piece of advice I have is to remember to not take your rejections personally, because honestly, a lot of the time with jobs, it's more about timing than your qualifications and experience. That is something that I've realized. If you are in the right place at the right time, you will be hired to be a surgeon, for God's sake. Honestly, even if you've never taken a biology class, if you're in the right place at the right time, people will hire you, and that's just the way it is. The other piece of advice I would say is to have a little bit of background information about the company that you're applying for. I only think this is really important because if they ask you questions about why you want to work for the company, to have an idea of what their values are. And then finally, dress the part. If you know what the dress code is, then dress to that dress code. If you know what the colors are that you have to wear, dress to that dress code. If you have a retail store you're applying for, dress in that brand if you can. So those are some of the things that I would highly recommend that'll make it a lot easier and probably more likely that you'll get hired. Now that I've shared some quick advice, I thought I would talk about one of my recent experiences that I had with a job interview. There's a few things that went wrong in this situation, and so I'm kind of going to lay it out for you guys and let you know along the way what went wrong. A lot of this is my fault, totally, because I applied for a job that I didn't want. There's something in my eyeball. So that's my first mistake. Don't do that. But what happened was I was in Trader Joe's with my family when my parents were here getting groceries, and there was a sign on the register that said, "Now hiring," and my dad turned to me and was like, "Hey Emily, you should apply here." And I was like, no, because there's nothing wrong with Trader Joe's. I'm sure it's a great company, but I had just gotten out of working in food retail for 2 years and I was over it. Honestly, you can only see so many groceries in one time of your life. It's just not fun. So I was like, no. But the man behind the register heard me and was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, our manager's here right now. He's over there," pointed and everything. And I was like, okay. So I went over, asked for an application, introduced myself, and he basically said fill out this application, attach your resume, drop it off, and da-da-da. So I was like, okay, cool. after that, I literally did not go back there. I did not drop off my resume because I didn't want the job. But then I started getting desperate. After like a couple weeks, I was like, I really need a job. I need to start making some money. I filled out the application and then I dropped it off. And the girl was like, oh, we're actually not hiring right now. And I was like, oh, that's funny because on all your registers and everything, it says that you guys are hiring. And she was like, oh, well, I'll just take your resume anyways and da-da-da-da. So the first thing that bothers me about that situation is the fact that you probably shouldn't have signs up saying you're hiring if you're not actually hiring, which has happened to me before as well. She said that to me and so I left. I was like, okay, whatever, like not gonna get the job. And then like literally 3 minutes later, like 3 minutes, not even out the door basically, they call me and they're like, hey, can you do an interview tomorrow? And I was like, so I get there, they made me wait for like 15 minutes before I got to speak with someone, which in the moment didn't bother me because I was like, whatever, you know, it's busy. There's lots of people, even though the store was like kind of empty, but I was like, it's okay, like that's just the way it is, it's just busy. And so then like 15 minutes later he comes to me and he's like, okay, let's have this interview. And then he just asked me like the basic standard questions. What are my weaknesses and strengths? What is my past work experience, and so on. And I was just answering honestly like I always do. And the thing about Trader Joe's, if you ever apply there, is that they don't spend money on spaces for staff, like no staff room, no offices in the buildings, and that's how they help to keep their costs down with the food. So I like it as a consumer because I like their products being so cheap, but as a staff member, not really having a place to like eat my lunch or like put my stuff would be kind of annoying. But I get it, that's cool. You have to keep your prices down, sure. So I wasn't like bothered by that. We did our interview in like a little back alleyway kind of thing, and it was totally fine, and I thought it went well for the most part. And he told me at the end of the interview, we will call you in the next couple days, and if you don't hear from us by Tuesday, you can call us. I go home and Tuesday rolls around, they still haven't called me, and so by Wednesday I'm like, okay, maybe I should call them just to be like, hey, remember me? So I called them and I said, hey, I had an interview the other day, just wondering if I could talk to someone about, you know, the results or whatever, the outcome of that. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, we'll get someone to get back to you. And I was like, cool. This was on a Wednesday, so it's not like it was a Saturday and it was really busy. They didn't call me for another 2 days. They didn't call me till Friday, and they called me on Friday and were like, oh yeah, can you come in for an interview? And I was like, but I already had an interview. Because I thought maybe they like forgot or had the wrong person or something. And they're like, yeah, okay, so maybe like a second interview? Like kind of unsure, like uncertain. I was like, okay, a second interview, sure. So we scheduled it in, fine, whatever. I get there and the person who's interviewing me is like the supervisor, like the head honcho. They don't use those names in the store. They use like captain and like fucking nautical theme shit. I don't get it. I don't know. If you told me to go to like the, what is it, the front of the ship or whatever, what's it called? Starbird, I would be like, what? Instantly he's quite condescending towards me, which is fine. Like honestly, like I'm very used to people being condescending to me because I've just done a bunch of interviews. Like I'm like, okay, cool, another condescending jerk who thinks he's better than everyone else. Cool. So he starts telling me about his kind of story, about how he has been working for Trader Joe's for like 75 years or something like that, how he's traveled the world for Trader Joe's. And by the world, I mean just North America because they're nowhere else in the world but the United States. And how he's moved to hell and high water for Trader Joe's and all this stuff. And I'm kind of just like, he's like, would you do that for Trader Joe's? Would you move to New Mexico for Trader Joe's? And I was like, no. And he was like, oh. And then it just went downhill. Like, it was just not a good interview. And he asked me, like, all the same questions as my previous interview, which kind of annoyed me as well because I was like, I already answered these questions, and he had written down the answers previously, so I wasn't sure what was going on. And then he goes, okay, so what are your hours? And I'm like, I'm available until 10, and I can work anytime in the morning. I'm a morning person. I'll wake up at 4 a.m. Like, I honestly don't care. And he was like, only till 10, though? And I'm like, yeah, only till 10. And he's like, you know we're open till midnight, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so would you change your time availability? And I was like, well, honestly, I'm new to the area. I don't really feel safe walking around at night by myself yet. Maybe in a couple months we could rearrange and I could extend my schedule to midnight. But for right now, if I were to start tomorrow or next week, I probably wouldn't be comfortable to walk home by myself at that time. You know, if I were to be hired, like we could talk about it. If you really needed me, we could talk about it. And he was like, we're talking about it right now. And I was like, okay, then I'm only available till 10. Like, Okay. He was so condescending and rude. And then once again, it took them a week to call me after that interview and be like, hey, you didn't get the job. And I was like, thank Jesus, because I already got another job. Honestly, if you go into an interview and already the supervisor or manager is condescending and rude towards you, imagine what it's gonna be like when you work for that person. Like, honestly, no. I know that wasn't that bad, but I just wanted to let you know a situation that happened to me. I think it's important to stand your ground a little bit when it comes to like your availability. That is basically everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you guys learned something, got some advice and tips, and I will see you all very soon. Please leave your bad experiences with interviews and stuff like that down below, and any tips that you have for people who are looking for jobs, and I will see you all soon. I hope you're having a great day. Bye guys.